Okay, last video on this solving the God shot. All right, I just want to get it out for any kind of researchers that would take on this project. It'd be a huge project, right? Here's here's um here's what you could here's what you'd be solving, right? Defining the God shot. Here's how you define the God shot using a goodness of fit function. Except I named it goodness of drink, God. Do you see what I did there? Goodness of fit function, right? And here it is, right? It's a distance between the obtained peak of the particles in the cup, right? Which we named D3. The distance from the ideal one, and remember the ideal one is from the focus group. They get together and they determine the ideal mouthfeel, right? And you need to analyze the particle distributions and what that is, right? Distance 1 is the distance from the TDS to the ideal tasty point, and distance 2 is the Kremer max line, or the Kremer volume, right? Maximum volume to the ideal tasty point, right? And you have a weighting factor. You need weighting factors, right? Because with the parameters, I suspect there's going to be multiple solutions to this. To having, the God shot is defined as when this goes to zero, right? When all the things line up. I think there's going to be multiple solutions, but there might not be, right? So we need weighting factors to say, well, what's going to be the best God shot if we can't get the things to line up. But if we can get the things to line up, then the weighting factors, don't matter because they're zero anyway. The whole term goes to zero, and everything lines up, right, perfectly. But what do I mean? What do I mean when I say we've got a set of parameters and we solve, right? So each one of these things, these three, right? This line and the particle distribution, right? This tasty point line and this Kremer line is governed by a function, all right? And that function, it's your kind of task as the researcher to find that function, right? To define an equation that will actually. I don't think you can do it analytically, and I don't think you can do it numerically. I think you'd have to use computer simulation, not colloids, but hard spheres, periodic boundary conditions, computer simulation. Right? You need like a supercomputer because you need to simulate fines migration and compression, right? But I believe there were two things that weren't included in the TurboShop paper. So that paper was that the model was a bit too simple. So you need that. Because they're the fundamental processes in Espresso, and I don't think you can do it numerically. What are the parameters, right, to play with, right? We've got these parameters. You've got the dose, you've got the number of holes in the basket, you've got the VFib compression on top, because you can have different amounts. You've got the basket diameter, again, fundamental to how it flows. So hole count, pressure profile, and the flow rate. Now the pressure profile and flow rate and the VFib compression, that's three variables, but only two of them independent. So there's dependencies on these. But that's the variables that you get to play with, all right? And I'll show you basically the equations, but not the actual equations. I'll just talk about how you can try and arrive at them, all right? Okay, so what's that first equation, right? The TDS line. It shouldn't be that hard to find, especially with molecular dynamics simulation. We should arrive at it really easy, right? You're looking at something like this, right? You're looking to find something like this, and the equation is your extraction yield as a function of those variables that I mentioned. And by the way, there's one more. So there's pressure, basket diameter, dose, flow rate, the hole count, and there's also the fines distribution. I think you're gonna need that in your equation, right? And basically what you can be doing with the molecular dynamics simulation, right, is you're gonna be simulating fines migration, and you really need this. You're gonna need to find the diameter of these capillary channels in the flow rate, because I think that's where the magic is. Okay, and since the work required to create a water air surface, is known, and by the way, it might not be simple as that, because there's also an oil, there's an oil air surface, and there's an oil water interface. So the surface free energy, which is a surface tension, surface interfacial free energy of the oil water interface has to be subtracted from water, I think. So it might be more complex, but that's known, right? The work required to do that is known, right? And the capillary size of the capillary channels is what you'd work out. You know your flow rates, and you know the number of capillary channels, and you just need to work out the size, and they'll be dependent on the grind size. And right, once you have that, you actually know where exactly this curve is going to start curving around, and so you know the location of the maximum point. So that's the equation for the and I'm not going to. It's not my business to solve it. I just as an academic interest, I'm giving this. I'll do the equation for the other two. Okay, so once you know this picture, right? Once you've got the equation for this, the tasty point equation is going to be easy, because you know the size of the capillary channels, and you know what size particles they allow, right? And so to get the distribution of particles that have come through into the cup, right? This equation, and the peak of that's really easy once you have this, right? And there's one more equation. The crema, the maximum volume of the crema, or the crema function, okay? This thing, the crema function, which is a function again of the pressure, diameter, basket diameter, the dose, the flow rate, the height, the hole count, and the fines distribution. Yeah, that will affect the crema, because fines migrate and all that. So once you have this structure, I think crema, the production of crema and the volume and the size of the bubbles will depend on what's happening in these kinds of chambers between the grinds, and the flow rates and the dynamics of that, and maybe some cavitation. I'm not sure I was right about the cavitation, because I'm not sure the pressure can drop within the basket to that low to produce the cavitation. So it might just be the sheer effect of the turbulence that strips the oil off the thing. By the way, you know why I think the larger puck thicknesses create more crema? It's because when the oil globules mix with air and C2O, they flow through multiple rounds of these compressions and turbulences, and that the thicker the puck is, the more the bubbles get divided, basically. I think that's why the smaller diameter baskets produce more crema. But that will all come out should come out in your equations, right? So at the end, you've got these three equations, right? You've got these three equations, and with all these variables, right? So you're going to be plugging in all of those variables, and you've got to be moving these curves around, okay? And using the equations before, except I said if GOD, goodness of drink, God, goes to zero, we can't have it going to zero, okay? We have to invert it, right? So if this term goes to zero, God goes to infinity. So infinity, right? So we have to have God goes to infinity, right? If all of these curves line up, if you find a set of parameters, basket depth, basket diameter, hole count, dose, pressure profile, whatever, or a solution, I think there's going to be families of solutions, right? Where these curves line up and God goes to infinity. That's you can't do any better than that. That has to be the definition of God. The funny thing is, the curious thing is that this is what baristas are doing. This is what baristas are doing. They're trying to create a God shot. They're trying to create the best possible drink, and intuitively, they're tasting their drink. They're trying to line it up with the tasty points, the notes, to maximize the notes, maximize the body and the feel, and to maximize the crema. That's exactly what they're doing. Except this is done mathematically, right? Anyway, that's the last of it, I promise. Or maybe not, I don't know. But yeah, that's the God shot, I reckon. 3-year PhD project, easy, or more. Easy peasy.